tends to make it a little bit wide back here and a little bit narrow up here. So I'm going to be doing a lot of marbling to get this wide part moved forward and get it wider out of the tip, okay? So we do a low angle roll, squeezing that glass forward. That tends to make a little ridge in the glass. So we're going to want to keep that up again before we start the bubble, just to make sure that ridge doesn't like permanently impact the glass. Short and wide. And every like 3 or 4 pickles, I'll be sprinkling more frit out into the tray so that there's enough like spread out frit to make it warts. Alright, I point it upward. This is going to make it wider at the base, which helps keep the sides thick enough, and it's going to encourage the bubble to go out towards the tip. See how it gets wider down here? And we'll start the bubble. It got a little cold while I was talking, so I'm going to heat that up again before I shape it. So I'm doing that triangle roll, pulling backward, and that's what gets the tip, keeps the tip on my axis and straightens it and pulls it into a nice cylinder instead of just trying to match it from the sides or pulling it into a cylinder. Does that make sense? And that should fit in the mold. We want to make sure it's a bubble that will go all the way down to the bottom of the mold. And you can see the thickness now, or the tip at least. Got it? You see that bubbles all the way to the end.
All the way to the end, yeah.
When we're going into a mold, we keep the pipe horizontal until right before we go in the mold, so it's not all stretching and changing shape on the walk over. On these ones, we just heat the whole thing. On some other molds, we would normally like heat it like this so that it's not going to blow out of the top. But this mold is about the same width as a pipe, so there's no way for the glass to blow out around the pipe. Warts. Now we've got some warts on there. We've got some ridges. I don't bother putting warts on the tip because whatever. It doesn't have to be, you know, literal and exact gestural. It's representative. Just enough to get those stuck on, and then we give it a little up. Give it a little swing. Make sure you keep an eye on it when you're doing that. If it's really hot, it can just go across the room. So I take a couple of slow swings to gauge its movement before I just go for it. If you go for it and it's too hot, not a good way to make friends. Sag, sag. Sag, sag. Okay? Sag, sag. Sag, sag. Do that one more time. Sag, sag. Once we have it where we like it, then we'll do the jack line. And you can see the tip of the pickle is basically on axis with the pipe, right? Ooh, that's a little cold, so we'll heat that up one more time, then we'll do the jack line. And you want to do the bend more exaggerated than you'd expect, because when we put in the jack line, it usually heats up a substantial portion of the curved part, so it looks a lot less curved now than it did a minute ago. I like to nibble on the jack line with my shears to make sure it knows where to break. And then I break these off in this little thing here, which helps me to keep it oriented and upright. And ideally, I'd like to put the hook on in line with the curve of the pickle, right? So, stick it on here. We want it to attach outside of the ring of the break off, right? We don't want it just touching where it broke off. We want it touching a little bit wider around there. So you can see it's sealed onto the sides of the pickle where the green is. And then we'll go folding it toward myself so it's in line with the curve of the pickle, right? And that's going to help it to not like sit crooked on your tree. There's our pickle.
Good one.
There's three. Okay, now today is the final day of our ornament class, so feel free to make any ornament you want to make. Make sure it's not going to take 20 minutes because we want to keep a good rotation going with everything. As hard as ornaments are to do because you have to do everything perfectly, I think pickle ornaments are like substantially harder. Fortunately, they don't take much longer to make. It's just there's more really precise steps to do, you know? Okay. Where's Emma? Huh?